Madam President,
The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the Honorable Tim Walz, Governor of the State of Minnesota, and his official party.
Will you please stand? The Sergeant at Arms will escort the Governor and his official party to the front of the chamber.
Good evening.
You may be seated. Members of the Joint Convention and guests, I present to you the Governor of the State of Minnesota, the Honorable Tim Walz.
Thank you all. Thank you. Speaker Demuth, Speaker Emerita Hortman, and members of the Minnesota House of Representatives. President Champion, Majority Leader Murphy, Minority Leader Johnson, and members of the Minnesota Senate. Madam Chief Justice, and members of the Minnesota Supreme Court, Chief Judge Frisch. My fellow constitutional officers, members of my staff, cabinet, and administration, and our incredible state workforce, distinguished tribal leaders, members of the Minnesota National Guard, Congresswoman Betty McCollum, welcome home. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and Minnesota's second gentleman, Tom Weber. He deserves it. Minnesota's First Lady, Gwen Walz. honored guests, and my fellow Minnesotans. Over the last 6 years, Minnesotans have been writing a story about what it means to govern like good neighbors, with decency, with common sense, but also with courage and ambition, and above all, an abiding commitment to making life a little bit better for the people we serve. I like to think we've proven the value of a strong Democratic Party, but also the importance of a strong Republican Party, willing to come to the table and contribute ideas in good faith. No matter what's happening in Washington, Republicans and Democrats have a record of working together here in Minnesota. The result? We can all be proud to live and serve in America's best place to raise a child. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. The rest of the nation has taken notice of what we've done here in Minnesota and how we've done it. The truth is, no matter where you go in this beautiful country, people tend to want the same basic things out of the American life. And when I say basic things, I mean things like a meaningful work, safe neighborhoods, good schools, affordable health care. But I also mean something more, something that's a little bit harder to define or to quantify. People want security. They want to feel like their life is built on a solid foundation that won't fall away if something goes wrong. People want opportunity. They want to feel like they can get ahead instead of just trying to settle for getting by. And they want their kids to have chances that they never had. And maybe most of all, people want freedom to live their own lives the way they want to live them, even if it's not the way their neighbors would want to live their lives. Security, opportunity, freedom. I hear it everywhere I go. And every time I do, I find myself feeling proud of Minnesota. The truth is, all of America would like to have what we have. And talk about security. We've given parents peace of mind through a child tax credit that is expected to cut childhood poverty by half. And every parent in this state knows their child's going to get a belly full, breakfast and lunch, so they can learn when they go to school. That's security. That's security. And we together passed the nation's most aggressive expansion of labor rights. Because a job's just not a job. It's a means to a secure life. And it should come with benefits, like earned safe and sick time and the right to collectively bargain for a better life. Financial security, job security, and we've invested collectively together time and hundreds of millions of dollars in fighting crime. And by the way, because of that work, crime is down across the state of Minnesota. I'm trying. That is something to celebrate. That is something to celebrate. We've worked together to eliminate Social Security's taxes on the vast majority of Minnesota's seniors, so nobody's parents will choose between prescription drugs and groceries. Invested in cutting crime, cut taxes. Those are things to celebrate. And in just a few months, we'll have one of the nation's most generous family and medical leave policies, because no one should worry about losing their income while taking care of a loved one. That's a good bill. And when it comes to opportunity, we've passed unprecedented funding for public education, and we work in a bipartisan manner to make sure our kids actually get the benefits from that funding by enhancing our literacy programs together. We've invested in bringing competitive, high-paying jobs to our state and growing our economy with an eye towards a green energy and innovation jobs that will shape the future. We're not just one of the best states in which to start a business, we're proving to be one of America's most popular states to grow a business. Just look at Philips, Solventum, Sofidel, and the Mayo Clinic, investing billions to create thousands of new jobs right here in Minnesota. And let's talk about freedom. Here in Minnesota, that freedom means several things. It means freedom from hunger and poverty. It means the freedom to worship or not. It means the freedom to be who you are any way you choose. And that is a birthright, not dependent on how much money you make, where your family came from, or the current issue of the day. That's what freedom looks like. Those are the things that make Minnesota great. That's why we are America's best place for kids. And it's also the reason I love serving in this job with all of you. Now tonight, with the state of our state as strong as it's ever been, we gather to write the next chapter in this great Minnesota story. But I can't help but point out that we also gather at a moment of great uncertainty for our nation. And let's be honest, this uncertainty, this chaos is no accident. The President of the United States has chosen to destroy the federal government's ability to help people. He literally hired the richest man in the world to take a chainsaw to the basic services that Minnesotans rely on to build better lives. His plan leaves nobody there working to prevent the next pandemic, nobody to pick up the phone at the Social Security office, nobody making sure kids with special needs get the quality education they deserve. Just a few months ago, Minnesotans who got ripped off by a bank, a credit card company, a healthcare company, could go to someplace in the federal government and seek help and relief. But now the government switched sides. Under this administration, the federal government exists to help the corporations as they screw the American people over. Next up, Medicaid. And everybody in this room and across Minnesota, let's be very clear what it means. 40% of children and more than 1 million of our neighbors in the state of Minnesota rely on Medicaid for their health care. This administration wants to take that health care away. Meanwhile, rural hospitals will be forced to close. All the rest of us, our costs will go up, and state budget will be torn to pieces. The President has also chosen, and I stress this, chosen to tear up the values that once made America the shining light of the world. Now, in this land of the free and home of the brave, we have university students being swept up, shoved into unmarked vans, and fathers being tossed into Salvadorian gulags without a hint of due process. So I want to be real clear about this. If you say you love freedom, but you don't believe freedom is for everybody, then the thing you love isn't freedom, it's privilege. And on an hour-by-hour, day-by-day basis, the President of the United States has chosen to throw our economy into turmoil. Global markets are teetering on the brink of collapse. Businesses across this country and here in Minnesota are already laying off employees by the thousands. Working people are paying more for basic goods, and if you haven't checked your 401k lately, don't do it. So let's be very clear. None of this had to happen. When the president took office 3 months ago, there was no reason to throw a wrench in the works and destroy decades of work. But if you listen to anything that comes out of his mouth, one thing has become clear. He's just plain confused about how the world really works for working people. We're talking about a guy that slapped a 10% tariff on an island populated only by penguins. It'd be funny as hell if it wasn't true and stupid. It makes no sense to anyone. That isn't servant leadership. It's not any kind of leadership. It's small, it's weak, and it's petty. It takes the awesome power of the federal government and turns it into a crude weapon, wielded by a man who wants to be king. As governor, I will continue to do everything in my power to protect Minnesotans from getting hurt and continue to provide shelter from the storm for Minnesotans. But I want to be clear. It is not enough to complain about the damage of the administration is causing. It's not even enough to try and clean up as much of this mess as we can. We need to prove to the people of Minnesota and to the American people there is a better way to govern. Because the truth is, this current administration in Washington, they're not forever. These small petty men will disappear into the dustbin of history, and when they do, there will be an opportunity and an obligation to actually rebuild government so that it works for working people. If we're all going to seize the opportunity, we have to be ready to show that we can be trusted with that obligation. If we want to earn back the trust of the American people in government, we have to be honest about the fact government hasn't always deserved that trust in the first place. And if we want the chance to govern righteously, if we want the chance to govern ambitiously, then we have to do a better job of proving that we can govern responsibly. Which brings me to this year's budget. 2 years ago, we made historic investments in our people and in our future. And I want to be very clear. We are not walking away from the commitments we've made to our schools, to our health care, to green energy, to public safety, to feeding our kids, and to taking care of seniors. We keep that promise. In fact, it is just the opposite. This year's budget protects those ambitious investments by embracing a spirit of responsibility and addressing some long-term budget challenges so that future leaders don't have to make impossible choices. So let me explain a little bit on this. Years ago, before many of us were here in St. Paul, members of both parties made a series of choices specifically around human services spending that has put us on a path of unsustainable cost growth. In just a few years, the biggest of these human services program will eat up $1 in every $8. We could ignore the problem for now. We'd have a surplus after this year. The wave won't crash this year, but it will crash. But while the problem was not the fault of many in this room, the solution should be our responsibility. So I'm proposing that we come together, DFLers and Republicans, House and Senate, and address this issue that we all inherited. For the economists in the crowd, my budget will be balanced for years to come. And in just the next 2 years, it will cut the structural imbalance by half. For everyone else, it's really this simple. Right now, we are the most generous state in the nation when it comes to the programs and services providing people with disabilities, and we should be damn proud of that. And the good news is this: after my budget is passed, we will still be the most generous state in the nation when it comes to these programs and services. And because of the efficiencies that we've proposed, we will be able to continue being the most generous state in the nation for many years to come. Bottom line, if we don't govern responsibly, someone else will get a chance to govern irresponsibly, and I refuse to let that happen. Another way we're protecting investments is by doing more to prevent, investigate, and punish fraud in government. We all agree. I thought you'd like that. But look, it's easy to demagogue government spending. The truth is, as long as there have been programs aimed at helping people, there have been people looking to steal from those who need them the most. We've made strides in catching the bad actors, stopping their schemes. We've sent a lot of crooks to prison, but we can do more. Minnesota should have a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to misuse of taxpayer dollars and theft. And earlier this year, we took action. I know it's being worked on in this chamber, and earlier this year, I issued an executive order to strengthen our state's capacity to investigate fraud by establishing a centralized fraud and financial crimes unit at the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I have a proposal before this chamber to use artificial intelligence to sniff out and catch the bad actors before they get their hands on the money, and a proposal to increase criminal penalties for theft of public funds by 20%. Bottom line, I believe that when criminals try to steal public funding, you don't cut the funding, you stop the criminals. And that's exactly what we do. We're also working to improve the efficiency and customer service across state agencies. It's not enough to just spend taxpayer money responsibly. You should also be spending it effectively. We've already made some strides in that. I look at just a little thing. A couple weeks ago, shopping at Cub, I can stop at a kiosk after the checkout, and in 3 minutes, I can renew the tabs for my car right at that spot. You don't have to go to the DMV. It saves us money. It's more efficient for you, and it's government meeting people where they're at. People deserve more bang for their buck, and that's exactly what this budget will deliver. Look, we're not the only ones that are undergoing scrutiny and looking at our budgets. Families across this state are sitting down at their kitchen tables trying to figure out how they're going to afford the president's tariff tax. And I can't stop those pointless policies coming from Washington. They're making everything more expensive. But we can do a few things here to make those difficult conversations around that table just a little bit easier. This year, I'm proposing an unprecedented tax cut for working people, a reduction in the statewide sales tax. We've never done this in our state's history, but I will tell you, it feels like there might not be a better time to do this. And make no mistake about it. Unlike the president's tax cuts for the very wealthy, our tax cuts are fully paid for. We're doing it by closing loopholes that the wealthy use to avoid paying the taxes in the first place. Yes, and we're going to do this. Finally, we're going to ask the big health insurance companies to start paying their fair share with a reasonable increase. A reasonable increase that hasn't been raised in decades on the surcharge that we already ask HMOs to pay. Even as the administration pushes for nearly $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, which would shift the cost to states like Minnesota, we're making sure that that burden doesn't fall on working families. It can fall on the insurance companies. Now, we got about 4 weeks. We're going to get time to go through this line by line together, hammering out a final proposal that allows us to move forward as one Minnesota and the best place for kids to grow up. This budget was not written to please everyone. It was written to bring everyone to the table. And when we get there, we're going to have disagreements, no doubt. My progressive friends might have wished we were cutting a little less. My conservative friends might wish we were cutting a little bit more. My wife wishes that I would take the pay raise that was offered, but I turn it down. But this is how government's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be one old man sitting in the Oval Office sending out middle-of-the-night tweets that shot markets into freefall. It's not supposed to be a bunch of 20-somethings unelected showing up at federal agencies and firing everyone. It's not supposed to be chaos and destruction. It's supposed to be good people elected by their neighbors with differing opinions coming together to negotiate in good faith. Our legislature is narrowly divided, but I believe we can unify around those ideas: security, opportunity, freedom. I believe we can continue to make Minnesota the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And I think we got a chance. And I believe we can show people, folks across the nation who are watching, that we can still work together to improve lives. Let's show the world what servant leadership really looks like. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the great state of Minnesota. Let's get to work.